Ingram is a local farm advisor here. He's done a lot of work really at looking at, so how do we keep people in business doing this, keeping them environmentally sustainable, making a profit, keeping the land in good shape, and so that's what he's going to be talking about as part of that, which is niche markets. Roger, as way back when, did his work at Texas A&M, so we're not going to hold being an Aggie against him here, but we're sure happy to have him. I guess for about 30 years now, right? So 25, I don't know, something like that. So, okay, Roger sure knows this area, so go ahead, Roger, on niche markets here.
Okay, thanks, Jim, and I believe we're about at 10:20, so I guess throw stuff at me if we need to. Okay, I'll start out with just a couple of commercials. One, we are going to have a 2-day grazing academy here at the Sierra Field Station. You'll get hands-on experience with grazing and that type of a thing. So I've got some forms here if you are interested in signing up for that. And then Terry Yoakum is here from CBCIA. Terry, raise your hand if you're in the room. Back over there. Anyway, there's a tour that they're doing down Bridgeport area and in that area and everything, so you could talk to Terry about that tour and everything. And I'm going to kind of give you my sort of take on kind of where we're at on niche beef marketing. There's a lot of interest in that. There was just an article, I believe, that came out in the New York Times, I think yesterday or so, on processing needs and that type of a thing. And one of the questions that I got, Cindy Daly forwarded me an email, and there's some kids in a high school class that were doing some stuff, and they wanted to know about, well, what is the size of the grass-fed beef industry? It generates a lot of talk, but when we're talking about size and scale, what are we looking at? And so I went to the Eat Wild website, which is eatwild.com, which that's where a lot of people will tend to put their listings on there to try and sort of extrapolate a little bit on how many head maybe is actually being produced. And there's about 70 ranches listed on that website, as you can see up there, and that would be some form of a niche meat. And there were, out of those 70, about 30 were marketing beef. And while that doesn't list everybody, that number might be closer to 50 of those who at least are marketing at least 25 head a year. I do know some that are up at least around 4,000 head a year, maybe even a little bit larger than that. But I think we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 15,000 head a year here in California being marketed as grass-fed beef. And as that says, there's probably about 3 or 4 that are doing the majority of that. So then I went and looked at statistics from USDA, and in 2010 there were over 33 million head of cattle harvested in the U.S., and in 2009 1.6 million head of cattle were harvested under USDA inspection here in California. So that would make the grass-fed beef market roughly, saying my ballpark figures are somewhere reasonably accurate, about 0.6 to 0.9%. If you wanted to say I'm way off by 100%, it's still only about 1 to 2% of all the cattle in California undergoing USDA inspection. So it's a tiny segment of the market. The interest is that it's a way to perhaps offer some other potential to capture a greater value than what could be derived on a commodity basis. And with the high prices of cattle right now, then maybe that becomes a little more marginal. With low prices, that can become helpful. Because it is a niche product. There probably is some market out there for a grain-fed product. This isn't a debate on, gee, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing. It's just on a grain-fed product, you have a very efficient system right now that is scaled up. And so as a result, they're able to relatively keep their costs of production low. You as an individual trying to recreate that same system, there's no way you can compete because you don't have the scale to keep your costs down low. What the grass-fed does is it allows you to all of a sudden be differentiated from the market, which then allows you to perhaps have that ability to be able to capture that higher price. So messages such as local, grass-fed, no added hormones. It's not no hormones because cattle do have hormones naturally, but no added hormones, no antibiotics. Those are going to be typical messages that will be done to try and get that premium price. Their organic is maybe something that in the future will eventually create more of a premium as well, but right now I would say the local and the grass-fed is creating enough of a premium, and the bump up in being organic is only marginal, so it's hard to justify the cost of getting certified, which is going to run you probably, let's say, I don't know, $800 to $1,200 initially, and then the follow-up inspections on a yearly basis, that's probably going to run about $500. I'm not sure you can totally capture that unless you really are looking at if there is some opportunities. I know with Panorama Meats, which does market thousands of cattle on grass-fed basis, they are offering about a 50% premium for organic, so I don't want to suggest it can't work. You just have to kind of know what works. Challenges that are out there, challenges for a lot of the people that I work with in the foothills type of a thing, and how do you get to scale? Is how can you get big enough to where it really makes sense for you to be doing that? And so that's, and when we're talking about scale, there's a whole bunch of connectivity that occurs here. Where I work, there's been a lot of development, a lot of chopping up of land into smaller parcels, so it makes it more difficult to find those pieces to where you've got resources, and the resources that you need are land and water. You have to have both of those if you're going to be able to do the grass-fed beef. It's important to also understand right now, and believe it or not, there's going to come a time when grass is going to start growing real fast. I keep going out there every day and hoping it will, and winter won't let go. And I had a bunch of frost at my house, and driving up here, it was just like, we're nowhere near what we normally are at this time of year. If we can bump up about 10 degrees, it's just step back and it'll just grow. But what we have out there, what you're seeing right now on that grass, we can just get the quantity out there. That's the stuff that you need right now that has a sufficient quality to finish cattle. Unfortunately, that window on rangeland is only about 45 days. Okay? So that means there's 365 days out of the year. You got 320 days, you got to figure out something else. So we've got to have not only rangeland, but we've also got to have some irrigated pasture as well. This is a graph that has been developed here, and even though we don't know the quantity of grass that's going to be grown every year, we do know when it is going to grow. Okay, we're going to get fall green up here in December. We will basically stay very static through February. We get a little bit of an increase in March. We double growth here in April, and then we can kind of double growth, not so much that you get this amount of growth in May, it's just that's kind of the peak growth that's coming in there type of a thing. So, these are actually foraged things on the first of the month. So in March we increase here, and then in April we kind of increase there. So it all kind of comes all at once, and then from there, after that 45 days, we've got to be looking into going to a different place. So we've got to look at irrigated pasture quality. Josh Davey over in Tehama, Glen, and Colusa County, and I know Larry Ferrero has done work in this area. He's farm advisor in Shasta County on irrigated pasture quality. So what we're looking is what do we need for average daily gain for 840-pound yearling, okay? And what we've got to get, if we wanted to get 2 pounds a day, for example, which would be kind of at least a target figure you'd want to aim for on pasture, we've got to get about 21 pounds of intake. Our protein is only about 9.1%. So protein's not really going to be that big of a challenge to deal with. The big challenge is, do we have enough energy? The TDN is a measure of energy, and do we have enough in there to where we can get the growth in there? That will be the thing we'll really have to look at. Well, looking at what Josh was able to do on all these pastures, there's 11 different ones. The TDN, as you can see, is going to meet the requirement there, as well as protein as well. So we can get to there on irrigated pastures if we just have the sufficient quantity then to be able to graze that, to be able to get the weight gains that we're going to need to be able to get that cattle up to a finished weight. We've also got to look at, well, what's the composition in those pastures? It's really important. If you're going to do grass finishing, you've got to get a strong clover component in there. I really got that, my eyes really awakened to that over this past year. I'd worked with a guy in Grass Valley off of McCourtney Road. He did some renovations of some pastures. He limed them. He put in some phosphorus. He put in some chicken manure for nitrogen. And those pastures were absolutely beautiful all summer. And because they were running about 50% clover, 50% grass, and just that quality, and it just really stood out. It's like you'd be driving around a corner that was kind of some dry pasture, and you just looked out there, and it was almost like an oasis. And prior to that, I'd also been working with a guy who was grazing what will be typical of what you'll find in irrigated pastures during the summertime, and that's going to be lots of Dallas grass, okay, which is a summer perennial that tends to come on, starts to come on in June. Then you'll kind of really see that for the rest of the year. Maybe some Bermuda, maybe got a little bit of cool season grasses, a little bit of clover component. And that kind of feed will do fine for some cows. Probably could kind of do fine kind of for some stocker gains, although what we really want to try to get is, something like what we're kind of looking at in here, a good clover grass mix, because that's where you're going to have really the energy component. It's energy that you need to get those gains on there. You'll have the protein on that irrigated pasture, but you've got to manage to where you have that energy in there, and that's where the clover component gets in. Can you go too far on one way? You sure can. If we were all clover, then all of a sudden we've got to start worrying about bloat issues and all those types of things. So we've got to have the mix. The thing is, we just need to be sure we're managing to where we're keeping that strong clover component to really get those efficient gains, so that then we can have an animal that when it's coming off of the end of the irrigated pasture season would be then ready for harvest and those types of things. Another thing is important, and this can be hard to get a grasp on, because if we see some grass left behind, our eyes will always tell us we need to try and grab another day. Okay? Now you want to maintain adequate rest periods based on the recovery period of the plant, but the thing that you also want to keep in mind is you want to leave plenty of feed behind. It doesn't mean you're just wasting feed, but you probably about 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches or something like that. If you can leave that behind, you are leaving enough leaves out there which can capture solar energy, which can then allow for the most rapid recovery as environmental conditions will allow, type of a thing. And so leaving residual will allow grass to grow grass. There's a stronger correlation on the residual you leave behind as far as the recovery period of that plant versus the amount of feed that you're coming in there initially and grazing off of there. These leaves are your friends, so you really want to manage those well. Another thing that is a huge issue for a lot of people is the need for more USDA-inspected harvest and processing. Why is that a big deal? Because in order to sell both wholesale and retail, when I say wholesale, anytime you're going to sell to a retail store, anytime you're going to sell to a restaurant, you are in effect wholesaling. Retail could be selling at a farmer's market, selling at a farm stand, or even just selling through being able to sell on a retail basis, is that you have to have inspection. You have to have inspection on the harvest, USDA inspection on the harvest, USDA inspection on the processing. Okay? Both of those things have to occur for you to be able to do that. All right? And you can also have, what will happen is you'll have this right here. These right here this is safe handling instructions right here. This right here is USDA inspected and passed by the Department of Ag. Establishment 6004 is the University of Nevada, Reno, Nevada, Wolfpack meats. Okay? That sticker has got to be on the package for you to sell retail and wholesale. If you don't have that, you can't do it. All right? And the problem is we don't have enough of these facilities, but that's what you got to have. Another thing is they revised the grass-fed beef definition. It is a voluntary program, okay, not a requirement, so you can voluntarily go into this program. And essentially, it's pretty much all the feed has to come from some sort of grass or forage or hay or haylage or those types of things. So you can kind of read the detail on that. Then from there, so say you were going to say, we are a grass-fed beef business, then you would apply for a label. And that's kind of the how that begins to start out as far as filling out that form, because that maybe that's a label claim that you want to make. If you're not going to make any label claims, you could just leave things here with the processor label and then just maybe stick your name up there, like Ingram beef, for example. As long as you're not making any claims, then you don't have to have other stuff on the label. The minute that you start to make claims, then that's when you have to go through this process on getting a label, because there has to be some sort of protocol of how will you prove those claims, how will you substantiate them. And so if you go to www.extension.org, and then you just search for label, you'll pull up for information on labeling through Niche Meat Processors Assistance Network. So all you need to really remember here is extension.org. Also at Chico State, if you'll Google grass-fed beef, that will take you to that website, and they have a really good thing to kind of walk you through label development type of a thing. That right there is Tammy Myrick, and that is at Chico State. Tammy came and spoke in Davis and also at Chico State in 2004 and 2005 on labels. She works for USDA, and Tammy is like the anti-government person, okay? And the reason why you call Tammy, she gets you answers, all right? So she really wants to help, and those types of things. There's her number, 202-205-0279. If you have questions, then she can help you navigate through that maze of the labeling. But going to the Chico State website will help you. Going to the extension.org website will help you. And then Tammy can help you as well on labels. So we said we've got to have USDA inspection on harvest and processing. So where are these places at? And this is what you've got. There's more processing facilities in California than what I have listed up here. This is my best take on those that will do custom processing for people in the room here, for example. So if you go all the way up here, that's in Humboldt County. That's where Redwood Meats is. Then we got to drive all the way down to Orland. There's Johansson's. Then we'll come across this way to Reno. There's Wolfpack Meats. Then we'll come down I-80. Here's Superior Farms. Superior Farms right now does sheep and goats. Usually on Mondays is kind of when they'll tend to go do that. They are interested in looking at doing USDA harvest, inspected harvest with beef. There currently right now is an 18-county survey that is happening because they would like interest in determining what is the demand for those services, and the survey is kind of looking at it more generically, but that will be a very big help for them. This is Rancho in Petaluma. They're harvest only. At one time they were going to shut down, sell to development, but then the economic downturn kind of caught them, and so that is still operational. Panazera Meat is a really small plant up in Sonoma County. They're doing sheep. Islamic Meat and Poultry is down in the Stockton area, predominantly sheep and goat. They can do a few cattle, but not a lot. They're not real set up for. Petaluma Livestock is in the Newman area, and that is down kind of in Modesto. Stagnos would be another processor in the Modesto area. They do pork and other things. And then Yosemite Valley Beef Packing is another, or Yosemite Valley Beef is right here. That's Stagnos. And then here's BPI in the kind of the Fresno area, which isn't really BPI anymore. And then down here we've got Creston Valley Meats. And then you see way down here, at that time in Santa Barbara was where the mobile livestock slaughter unit was in Paso Robles area. So that sort of gives you a flavor of all these processors. What would happen? Right now, they're basically trying to eliminate the extension service in the state of Nevada. They've got like about a 70% cut that they're dealing with. What would happen, and this where Wolfpack Meats is on the University Farm, prime real estate thing. If all of a sudden they went out of business, what happens to this area? What happens if Johansson's goes out? Those types of things. This is what the implications are. Where are you going to go? Can you still find a way to get processing done? Yes. but you're going to have to go farther, and will they provide the service for you that you need? So that's what we were just talking about. Another thing that you really need to stay on top of is that when you haul animals for processing, you really need to think of getting a bunch together that are going to be ready. Or maybe there's a way for you to collaborate with your neighbors so that you're going with a full trailer load, okay? I talked about that if you're doing grass-fed, maybe it allows you to capture a higher price, and that's going to be your niche. But what can happen is, if you only got 1 or 2 head that you're hauling there, your transportation costs will eat up your profit, okay? Because it's going to cost the same for me to haul 1 or 2 head as it is a full trailer load. So you really need to be thinking through and kind of figuring out your scheduling on when these animals are going to be ready, so that you don't have, and that's kind of a hidden cost if you're not really looking at that can kind of eat you up. Then there's this whole thing of we need more facilities. That's what we need. And so I talked to you about that survey that is happening and that's going on through April the 30th. These are the counties that are being targeted. You can see Nevada and Placer here, and here's Yuba, and here's Sutter, Butte. So every county kind of in this area too would be in that survey. There is interested there is a guy actually, Fred Manis, who is working to get a USDA inspected processing facility. That means a cut and wrap in the Cape Valley, and so if the harvest could occur at Superior, that would be a nice linkage. There's a processor in El Dorado County who's interested in getting USDA inspection to where he can get going. And then the big thing is that if you are going to have a facility, especially if you're doing both harvest and processing, it comes down to what is the demand for services that you're going to have. Okay, I put up here a bare minimum is going to be 1,000 head per year. It's probably could be even higher than that at 1,500 head. And so I was looking over here, and here's this graph. Here's this Timbuktu bend. Okay, so here we go here, then it kind of goes here, and then it goes down like that. This top of Timbuktu bend right there, that represents the cost the processor has. The reason why that cost is there is because there's a high labor requirement to operate a processing plant. The reason why there's a high labor requirement is so that you can get the throughput of the animals through there. All right? If that's going to be their cost, they've got to have the demand, i.e. the number of animals going through there, to match that. If you run into a situation where here's the staff they've got to have on board to make things work economically, and that's the demand, that plant will die. Okay? Cash flow will kill them. If you start mapping that out on a monthly basis, they will start hemorrhaging money worse than the federal government. Okay? So we've got to try and match. We've got to try and match that up. All right, 1,000 head is 25 head a week. All right, that type of a thing. So that's where this whole demand thing really comes in. Here's a mobile livestock processor. That's down in the Paso Robles area. They were able to get a grant to get that built. Well, it was some funds that weren't spent that they were able to capture to get that built. But that's been a real struggle with this. A lot of interested in these kinds of facilities. The problem is, most times it's been 5 head a day that could probably get done through here. I've heard some estimates that think it could be 8 head a day. So at the most, it could be 1,000 to 1,200 a year. But again, there has to be sufficient demand. And the other thing is that for a while, when they were initially starting out, it was like $200 a head just to be for the harvest part, because it still has to be hauled to a processor. So while on the one hand it sounds like a neat idea, it's almost like this would be better to be stationary but parked right next to the cut and wrap place, which then starts to beg, well, would it just be better to build a better facility, a bigger facility, that type of a thing. So I don't want to say that it couldn't work, but there's still that whole demand thing, and what you can get through there really is something to consider. I'll just want to walk you through real quick on, these are on 5 back grass-finished heifers that we did. This was in 2005. They were frame score 3. Frame score 3 is about 46 6 inches or something like that. You need a smaller framed animal to do grass-fed, simply because you're limited by the size of the rumen, which gets fixed at about a year's age. So i.e., there's only so much grass that can be going in, then it empties, but that as an animal grows, more of that feed has to go for maintenance, and there's less available for growth. Okay, so it's going to be harder to try and grass finish a 1,400 pound animal as it is, say, something around 1,100 pounds type of thing. These heifers were 937 pounds, carcass weight was 546, dressing percentage 58.3. So it's going to be harder with grass to hit a 60% dressing percentage. I could show you some other data on some steers that is hitting that, but you need to think about that. Back fat is very important. That's about 0.25 inches. Quality grade was low choice, so it is possible to grass-fed and get to a choice grade. I'm not saying it's not challenging, but it can be done. Here's your ribeye area, kidney, pelvic, and heart fat, and there's your yield grade right there. Here's what you're looking at on the yield. About 62, 63 pounds on the chuck, 21 pounds on the rib, almost 60 pounds on the loin, 35 pounds on the round. Brisket, foreshank, flank, all those kinds of cut, about 17 pounds. Others is 65 pounds. And look at the trim, 120 pounds. So on 322 pound primal yield, if you factor that back in, about a third of the live weight actually ends up being the meat yield that you have, and about 50% of what the carcass weight is that. So it's just, you got roughly 1,000 pounds, all of a sudden you got 333 pounds of meat. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. This kind of gives you, I thought, I must have screwed up when I submitted this for the proceedings. I thought that was going to get into there. You can email me. I'll get you this sheet, at least to kind of give you an idea of how the cuts broke out. And again, here's what you start with. That's the hanging halves. This is what you end up with, okay? But in addition to that, you also get this. There's fat. That, you know what that's a box of trim right there. And then I couldn't find another box. I thought I had a whole bunch of bones. Now, there's markets for those bones and that type of a thing. But the point is, there's a whole lot of stuff that you kind of lose on the carcass. This is a guy named Chris Calkins from Nebraska, University of Nebraska, and what he is talking about, this is a chuck, and they're trying to researching different cuts that they could pull from that chuck to try and have something that's a desirable product to increase the overall carcass value. The storage is that to legally store meat, you have to have a permit from both the county and also from the state. You can also, if there's some sort of meat locker, like Roseville Meat, for example, just because that's what I'm familiar with, they offer storage. There's Sinclair Meat Storage that offers that as well. So you can do that as well. If you're going to get a freezer, it needs to be commercial grade. If you're going to buy a walk-in, talk to PG&E on what is the best electrical hookup for that unit, because that can all make a big determination on whether you're paying $500 to $600 a month on energy or less than $100 type of a thing. These are the permits. This is with Department of Public Health, Food and Drug Branch. That's one permit, and then this would be the county through Environmental Health. And there you can just, this is Sinclair Meat Storage. There's a walk-in there. That's just some tips, and you can read those in, type of a thing. Here's the last point that I want to make. I had a guy named Bob Reynolds who helped me with some work that we were doing in 2005. He made this point, because a lot of times we can get confused. Education versus marketing and sales. He made a point. Education was helpful in creating awareness of product. It casts a broad net, communicates to a broad audience. However, it doesn't have a selling message. It only seeks to inform and clarify, which means that doesn't work for you. You got to focus on marketers. Our responsibility is to sell product to consumers over and over and over again. To do that, we provide the information, the selling messages, and to direct them to the products to convince them to buy and to buy again. That's got to be what you got to focus on. And if you're not the person who's going to do that, if you're going to be the production side, you've got to find the person who will do the marketing side. This is me. Contact me, and there's a lot of farm advisors working in this area, and we can at least be some help for you. So I think that's it
So, thank you, Roger.
For me.